Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very exciting episode of CLX Foundry Live, where we go deep inside a customer's build and assemble it from the ground up. And today is definitely one that is going to be reflected in the books as similar to what's going on outside of my house. Significant amounts of water or liquid, because it's our first open loop system. I am DJ BluePDX, your host. Joining me right now is Paul Steffens, our lead technical expert and today's master builder, and the order of the fluids. It is Hayden Hutchinson. What's up, guys?
What's up?
So before we get on the kickoff to talk about all of this, let's talk about what's happening with our giveaway. That beautiful machine that you can see between those gentlemen is what we're going to be giving away at the end of the month, and it is awesome. It is filled with all sorts of incredible gear that you can find out by typing !give lav. Now that does not mean lav microphones. It's talking about lavender, because it is a brilliant lavender color. It's going to be perfect for the spring. All you have to do is follow the instructions, and then you'll get more entries. There are codes that are given away both on our social media, that is our YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter at CLX Gaming. You could also jump into our Discord at discord.gg/CLX Gaming to see what the trivia question might be that Ivory might just throw out there when you're least expecting it. You can also hop over to my channel where I do absurd word games to try and make everybody guess, think, and make sure they stick around on the channel. And that's going to be happening today for both of our shows, but just remember, please join in all those things and stick around. We got a lot of cool things to happen today. If you hear something mentioned that you don't understand, doesn't make sense, or you just need more explanation on, please ask. There are no stupid questions at all. And that is because we're going to be talking about something extraordinary, and it is not what you might think. This is the first time we've done an open loop system on the show. So Ryan in Pennsylvania ordered an open loop, and we've been talking about doing this since we started this show 8 months ago.
Yeah, a lot of hype for this one. We've been talking about doing open loop. We knew we wanted to do one, but we were trying to figure out the logistics of it. Open loops obviously take a lot more manpower, so we've prepped a few things that we can go over and kind of show you guys, but you'll still see everything come together, us fill the system, all that. So if there's stuff that we don't do that you want to see, maybe stuff that we prep, just let us know, and we'll plan for that going forward.
Perfect. All righty. So, question coming in from Temperance says, the question is, Ivory doing the codes today, or is DJ encrypting them? That is a good question. Yeah. Yeah, we were just talking on our show earlier, like last week. I was talking about, I really want to do an open loop. So now we get to finally do one, which is great. So let's start with all the pieces you're going to be putting into this open loop system.
Yeah, so the parts going into this, starting off, we got the i7-13700K. Our motherboard is an ASUS Prime Z790-A Wi-Fi. It's a good aesthetic for this board.
It's the first thing, too.
That's right, it is. Yeah, this board looks great, too. It's got some good design on it. We've got 32 gigs of DDR5, 5600 speed, Kingston Fury memory, RGB, a 1 terabyte NVMe drive for our main storage. Got an RTX 4090, this giant box here off camera. I'll show you this. This box is pretty crazy. It's a Founders Edition, so it'll be cool to just even show this getting unboxed. 1000 watt Silverstone 80 plus platinum power supply, and then obviously we're doing an open loop, so all of our cooling components are from EK. We'll show those off as we get to them. This is going to be a CPU loop, so our open loop is going to be cooling the CPU. Our video card will still be cooled the standard way with fans, but it is going to be vertically mounted in the case.
Which is a first.
Yeah, which is a first.
Yes.
So our case, we've got a white Phanteks Evolv X here. You've seen on the show, great looking case. And you can see we've got some stuff in there already. So this is some of the stuff that we prepped. We've got our big radiator up top. Now this is a push-pull, right, Hayden?
Yep.
So we have 3 fans on the bottom that you can see. The radiator obviously in the middle here, and then 3 fans on the top. Now you can't see those from this, but once it's turned on, the RGB is going to glow out this case. Now,
cool.
Something else that's pretty, that's obviously unique to this build. We've mounted our pump res combo. So our pump's down here, the res is reservoir. So this is going to be where our main fluid is. We'll show this a little bit more, but we have to do some custom modding to this case. We'll show that too once we get to the back of the case to mount this. So these are a couple things that we've prepped before the show for the open loop, just to make it just for time management. We're figuring out ways to do more open loop so we can show the whole process, probably in another video. The only other thing we've done to prep is bent our tube. So Hayden, if you want to show them some of those tubes there.
Yeah. Real quick, before you start that, I just want to say, for those of you who were not paying attention to some of the give codes, there was a code given. It was encrypted in Ivory's specific fashion, and that is going to be Foxhole XO. That's the way you want to go, FHXO. Get it. First 100 people. First 100 people. Grab it, grab it, grab it good. All right, so those look like super tiny tubes of joy. Now,
yeah,
they're bent. How do they start, Hayden?
So it starts out a lot longer than this. I just grabbed a scrap piece for stream's sake. No, you're good.
There you go.
So it starts out like this, obviously a lot longer, but.
And that's is that plexiglass or is that actual glass?
Acrylic.
Yeah.
It's acrylic.
Acrylic. Okay, got it.
PETG, if you wanted to look what that up. It's kind of like an acrylic tempered glass kind of combo.
And so I take this. Obviously, I'll show you later on how I get measurements and things. But let's just say, you know, I needed a bend like right here. I would heat it up with the heat gun, and then
insert
just
the tube in there.
Yep, and then I would insert the. Actually, I didn't grab that.
That's okay.
It's a silicone mold. You push the silicone mold into it, and then you just push it up against, and it bends into a 90, because this is the 90-degree angle. We have other angles. Sometimes I use those, and then sometimes I've even done, like, I call it a bottle cap bend because it's the size of a bottle cap, but it just loops on itself, and so that's just not very frequent, but you know.
And you can see
okay, by the way, just to correct myself, I saw the 100 and the 25. I don't know why, for some reason in my brain, I thought 25 entries for 100 people. No, it's 100 entries for 25 people. I'm special. Sorry. Okay, so I've got so many questions, but I also did a little search because, you know, my housemate is a glass worker. That's what he does when that's his version of gaming. He relaxes by making glass art. So PETG is also known as borosilicate glass. It's actually a product of ceramics. So, and anybody who knows anything about ceramics knows that, like, especially if you have ceramic grills or smokers, they can take in a whole lot more heat and dissipate it very differently as opposed to glass, which can get brittle. And so interesting. It's very interesting you've got that it's clear, which is really cool.
Yeah, and something I want to point out too on these tubes that are pre-done, you can see these black pieces that were inserted into the ends.
Yeah.
So Hayden's got this sample piece. He'll show you kind of how that goes.
So you grab your tube, and then you grab this tool, and
all three razor blades in there.
Yeah, you just turn it around, and it widens the hole. I can get an overhead shot.
Kind of flares out a little bit there.
Yeah, okay, I see.
It widens it, and then you just take your black insert. And what you do,
which is kind of like a super washer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we didn't always use these black inserts. This is a relatively new thing we started using. Basically with the next gen video cards, I believe starting with the 30 series, they were getting really hot in the video cards, and it would almost even, it would
bubble out.
Yeah, it would bubble out your tube that was going in there. So this insert gives it some more rigidity and also helps absorb that heat a little bit better. So that's why we have those in there.
But yeah, you just
awesome.
Widen that hole, and then you can see, hard to see with the black t-shirt on.
Okay.
Yeah.
You put the insert in.
So can I ask some questions? Because so first of all, we had question subject. That's what are we doing today? We're building our very first open loop system. Now, for those people who may have forgotten, Paul, can you explain what the difference is between an open loop versus what we've normally done on the show previously? And those are closed loop AIOs.
Yeah, so we pretty much every show before this has been with a closed loop AIO. So that refers to what we put on top of the cooler plate, on top of the processor on our motherboard, which we'll show here in a little bit. It's a pump and a radiator, all tubes built in it itself, all in one. That's why it's called an AIO. You just install your radiator, and you're good to go. You don't have to add any fluid. Now, this being an open loop, we'll show you, obviously our system's open. We have the open tubes here. We're gonna be actually adding in fluid with these fill bottles here.
That's a boxer's bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a boxer's mouth rinse bottle.
So, yeah, exactly, yeah. So we have our fluid here, so you'll actually watch us fill this up with the coolant itself, and, you know, we'll get the air out of the system and all that stuff.
And for anybody who hasn't, like, I don't know, put two and two together, because it took me a second to really think about this. So that big pump that you see there with the clear reservoir on top that Paul's pointing to right now, that is what is the equivalent of that square that sits on top of the processors for when we do our AIOs. But this is a much larger version. So what are some of the advantages to having an open loop, especially with a pump and a reservoir this size?
Yeah, so the cooling is just going to be unparalleled. The cooling for this process is going to stay very cold. If this customer, I'm going to assume they're going to want to overclock it. Even if they don't, it's going to be able to stay at those boosted speeds for a very long period of time. So
that's awesome. So yeah, so that means you're going to be hitting and maintaining a turbo for quite a bit, if not all the time, because there's not going to be much of a heat resistance on it.
Yeah, correct.
Got it. Okay. So as you can see, there's the reservoir in there. You've got the intake and the outtake. There are looks like there's little gears, or those are connectors.
Yeah. So these right here that you see coming off the pump, these are the fittings that we have installed. So one is obviously a 90-degree fitting. You can see it's an elbow right there, and then this is just coming straight out. So this pump doesn't come with those installed. We've installed those here just for the sake of time. So our pump is down here, obviously, and our reservoir is the clear part. So that'll be full of liquid. And then one thing else to show before we just get started on the build. So I was showing you how we've kind of, the custom mod that we've had to do is nothing crazy, but we've had to mount the pump right here. So you can see these 4 black screws. Had to put holes in it to mount it there. So,
and those weren't there previously?
Correct, right.
Got it. Okay. All right.
So
you said something about fittings. Do fittings all come in the same color, or how does that work?
So fittings, you can go, there's all the colors in the world for fittings. Now this customer is getting white fittings that you'll see. I know these are showing, these look black. This is just our 90 fitting. There's actually going to be a fitting that screws onto this kind of stainless steel part right here that's going to be white. And we'll show those here in just a little bit.
Wow. And if you look in the Foundry section, if you choose liquid cooling, there's easily a dozen or more different colors. There's a whole myriad of rainbow and highlighter and that looks like glow in the dark. I don't think it actually glows in the dark, but
no, there's UV
yeah,
ones.
There's UV ones. We had an Elite that was a UV that actually looked really good. We were unsure about the colors, honestly, once it got put together, but once it was in there, it looked solid.
Very weird color combination, but once everything's turned on, they change colors.
Yeah, look good.
That is so cool. Awesome. Okay.
So, okay, I think we're good to just start with the build then. So I'll give Hayden the motherboard, and we'll start getting into things.
And let's talk about this motherboard. We thought we had this motherboard before, but then I determined that maybe it wasn't. But today, for the first time ever on our program, we are using one of the ASUS Prime Z790A Wi-Fi boards. Now, this is not only a super thick board, it's a gorgeously well-prepared board, and here's why. If you take a look at the top down real quick, you can see how you've got that large Prime emblazoned heatsink on the top on the left-hand side by the I/O for the North Bridge. I don't know if we get a top shot on that.
Yeah, we'll go to a top shot here in just a minute.
We'll get that.
I love that. It's like a window in there.
Yeah.
Which I want to talk about.
So you got your window. You've got the Prime, which is fully RGB programmable, including that strip that's right next to Hayden's finger. That's actually a full LED line that feeds on down. You've also got that lower right-hand side where it says space. Obviously, you've got this very forward-thinking, imaginative, futuristic design with all of the heat sinks for both the North Bridge, South Bridge, etc. Gentlemen, what are some of the advantages to having this kind of a heat sink and also to a board of this nature?
So really, obviously, the beefier heat sinks are just going to give you better heat dissipation, better cooling. This processor being open loop cooled is obviously going to be all the components here that would get hot are going to stay cool. That's all going to help it run well, and then obviously,
especially with the vents that are in the heat sinks.
Yeah, having these cutouts will really help get rid of that heat. That's what those are there for. That's what our case fans are doing when they're blowing through the case. They're blowing over all of this and cooling that. And
go ahead.
Something else to point out. So this window here for our I/O. So you can kind of see in there, there's a silver bar, silver box, kind of right under the A here. So this is what we talk about. This board obviously has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And really all that means is that under this right here, this silver box, there's an M.2 Wi-Fi slot that the card's sitting in that box, and the antennas are right off the side of it. So that's how that works when it's built in like that. I love that the window shows that.
Yeah, it looks so sick.
It's such a hard thing to show.
The build's going to be all white, so it's going to be really nice.
Yeah, that's it's honestly super incredible right there. Question coming in from Subject, who asks, wait, you already got the white coolant question answered. There we go. Let's go down. Subject asks, considering an ASUS motherboard for a setup myself, building Pro Paul, thoughts on ASUS boards?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of ASUS boards. They're performing really well. Back when like the X99 Z170 chipset, we were getting some deluxe boards in, and that kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. We had a bunch of those failing. But that was just their weird, it was like a weird high-end board. All their ROG, all their Maximus, stuff like this is solid performing. Their BIOS is really nice too. If you ever have to mess around with their BIOS, they make their BIOS look good.
Awesome. I agree. The ASUS boards are wonderful. And Kronos Greek NA, hello. Yes, it takes me a long time to do things. It's because I'm usually spending most of my time on my Air. All right. So as far as this board goes, we've got some incredible connectivity. Let's take a look at that I/O shield real fast and see what we've got for that level of connectivity. First of all, this board obviously comes with a DisplayPort and HDMI. We won't be using that because we will have a graphics card. We also have a USB 3.2 Gen 2. It is a Type-C right there, obviously, plus 4 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type-A ports. Those are all the blue ones. Now, if you look down, there's these two turquoise right next to the Ethernet. Now, that is an Intel 2.5 gig Ethernet port, also known as a Dragon port, and they have 2 USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports, 2 Type-A's and 1 Type-C right next to it. These are high-speed ports. Plus, you've got Wi-Fi 6E, obviously down on the bottom, your 3 audio jacks, and we'll talk about the Bluetooth in just a moment. This board obviously will have a processor plugged into it, and that is going to be the i7 13700KF. So, Paul, what's the difference between a 13700K and a 13700KF?
Yeah, so the differences are the 13700 is kind of your baseline for that family. It's not unlocked, which means you can't overclock it. But the 13700KF is unlocked, so you can overclock it. The F refers to the chip does not have onboard video, so you have to have a video card. Now, obviously, 99.9% of the time, if you got a 13700KF, you're going to have a video card. And then just the K is obviously it does have onboard video, and it is unlocked for overclocking.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, so that's going to pop in there now. Obviously, normally we've got that little bracket. You can see the little black plastic piece, and you just pop that thing down. Is there anything different that you have to do for this because we're going to be open loop? Because normally we do an AIO, and we'd have those 4 brackets that stick up in the back, but you know, we've never seen this done. How does this work?
Yes, so we're going to be installing a CPU water block, sometimes referred to as a mono block. I've got that here in my hand, so we'll let Hayden get that. So we install our processor just like normal. Like you mentioned, there's no back bracket for an AIO. This is what we will be using here.
There is a back bracket, actually.
There is a back bracket, yes, sorry.
There
is a back bracket for this. So this is our EK Quantum Velocity CPU block, sometimes, like I said, sometimes referred to as a mono block. They make these to fit all the different types of chipsets, so obviously if you're ordering one of these, you want to make sure you get one that matches your motherboard. And in here, this is the actual, so that copper part on the AIOs that we show, that's what this part is.
Interesting.
So obviously the pump is separate, we saw that in the case, and this is what it is here. So it looks really cool. We've already got our fittings installed onto this water block here. So I'll go ahead and pass this off to Hayden. He'll get the back bracket off, and we'll get that in. This thing is very heavy.
Hayden, can you just show us the top of that real quick from the top down? So obviously there's a pathway in here. I'm assuming that so it has a chance to try and get across the majority of the top of the processor and cool it and dissipate that heat and get that hot liquid back out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it goes in and it comes right back out.
Yeah, those 2 ports, that's one input and output. So yeah, you can see the design in there of how the fluid is actually going to flow.
Now, are all blocks the same?
No, so you can.
different.
There's all different models that can kind of fit different themes. But like you could buy this one for, let's say, an AM5 chipset if we were doing a, you know, an AMD build, and it would look the same. It's all different models, just kind of like AIOs, kind of same functionality, but you can buy different models that look different and fit your build. Because really, when we're getting into open loop, it's obviously a lot of aesthetic there. So, you know, when you're putting this much time into a system like this, you want the coolest looking stuff for sure.
And to be fair, this is pretty awesome. Now, it's got a power cord there. I'm wondering if that's not just for the pump.
That is.
Well, actually, is that for the lighting?
It's for
It's for
RGB,
lighting,
for the
yep.
pump.
Because the pump's not there. The pump is actually over in the case, so it doesn't have a built-in pump.
You can see this cable coming out. This is a 3-pin RGB cable is what this is. And that's all this cable is. So, yeah, for the lights in there. Now,
Yeah,
Hayden,
your pump is going to be the one that's pushing in and pulling out that air, or pulling out that liquid.
Gotcha.
Now, we are going to go ahead and install the RAM now before we get too far into the CPU block.
Necro's like, I know this is a delayed answer, but your hair looks marvelous. No wonder it took you so long to get ready. Yeah, well, the nice thing about my hairline that is pretty unique, my hair actually has an active camo mode, so it's currently on. Obviously, I played a lot of Halo. I've got the beaver cut. Just do this or that. It never gets in my eyes. It's fantastic. Alrighty. So, next up in the procedure. Now, is this a standard way of building these?
Yeah, so we've installed our memory here. We just did that. And we're doing that before we get into all this. Hayden can kind of explain why.
Yeah, so it's just so I can have all the room, basically. I don't know if that makes sense. It's a me thing, really.
Yeah.
It's a me thing. But no, we can get this thermal paste on and get this block.
Okay. Question coming in, subject mentions, I noticed most builds you guys do are Intel processors and hardly any AMDs. Is there a reason for that, or is it just what people often prefer? We've actually done quite a few AMDs on the show.
Yeah. Yeah, we have done quite a few AMDs, and it is customer preference, and sometimes typically what we see here as far as orders coming in is if there's like brand new AMD CPUs that come out, you know, for a few weeks we might see more orders for those, and it kind of goes back and forth. I don't want to say it's 50-50 because that's not accurate, but just from a feeling standpoint, it really does feel kind of 50-50. It might lean slightly more towards Intel, but yeah.
Yeah. Good answer. Good answer. All right, so we've got, so in this case, you're going to put the block on first and then the bracket.
Yep, so I'm going to put the block on first.
Interesting.
Flip the board. You'll see why. It's just because...
Yeah, because that's the opposite of the way we would do it with an AIO.
Yeah.
So when you're doing this, real quick, just what's the preference on the positioning of the cable?
That's what I'm trying to make work. There we go. I wrap it around the standoff right here, pull it to the right, and then I will just kind of loosely put that on there. And then once I flip it, I'll be able to see what I'm doing. So you can see the silver.
Oh yeah, you can see the little silver holes in there.
Getting this bracket on now. We're putting that on first, so my hand is under the board pushing that block on. Now I'm going to loosely put in all the connectors, and then we can screw them in.
Yeah, so you can see how he's tightening it down.
It's very different than different than the AIOs.
These here, they have like grooves on the side, so you can get your fingers on, and then after that you can go in with your Allen wrench and tighten them down properly.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question because I'm a kind of a car guy on that level. So when it comes to how you do that, the order that you do this in, like with lug nuts, you want to do the star pattern. You don't want to go straight around the tire. So it's the same way here. You want to do, I see him going cross, up and back. Is that better for ensuring you get the right tightness and you're not over tightening one corner versus the other?
Yeah, because like in the past when I was first starting, I tightened, like for example, I tightened this top right, and then I went over to the left, and I heard a pop, and that standoff just pulled out. So
no,
you want to make sure
that can't be good.
Yeah, no, you want to make sure you're going in you know,
The
even,
star pattern.
even
yep.
if you don't go in a star pattern, you want to just make sure that
Yeah.
you're only doing like 1 to 2 turns per screw.
Got it. Okay.
But then once it stops, like that just stopped, you don't want to go anymore.
Yeah.
Because
Got
you're
it.
going to over tighten.
And what that risks is that when it heats up, it's going to snap.
Yeah. And that would be
Got
good.
it.
That would be good.
Yeah, no, that's...
Can flip this back over now.
Sweet. So
Can't believe how awesome. It already looks cool.
yeah, the CPU blocks look so cool. And you can see, I mean, it really isn't too difficult to install here. The most difficult part from an open loop is the tube bending.
Tube bending is the hardest.
So if you were doing like a soft tube, I mean, that'd be a pretty intimidating thing to like just jump into right away, but you could definitely do a soft tube.
Soft tubing is the easiest for sure.
And something else to point out, obviously this is way larger than an AIO here. You can see, I mean, we've got this little gap in between our memory, and it's almost making contact with our heatsink here. So that's good. Like I mentioned before, this thing is very heavy. It's a very solid chunk of metal, which means we'll have good heat absorption through there.
It also makes your computer heavy. Your
Yeah, it does
PC's
make your
heavy.
PC even way heavier, for sure.
Speaking of things that are heavy, I do want to point out that this board does come with the latest and greatest in Bluetooth technology. It is 5.3. Bluetooth 5.3 on this, plus the Wi-Fi 6E 2x2. It's actually a 2x2 Wi-Fi 6E. So it supports 2.45 and 6 gigahertz frequency bands. So that's pretty rad.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and take off this top M.2 heat shield and install our M.2 drive.
Awesome. So let's talk about the M.2. Obviously, we have our favorites here. They are helped us with a couple different things in the past when it comes to giveaways. It's Kingston. The 1 terabyte Kingston NV2 M.2 NVMe SSD, going to be going underneath that very top slot. And now you pulled off a thing called a heatsink. Let's talk about what that does and why it's important when it comes to your M.2.
Yeah, so this is our heatsink. This is going to pull the heat off the M.2 and then be cooled with our case fans. Now you can see this this material that's on it right here. This is it's like a squishy, sticky material. This is called a thermal pad. It's essentially like doing the same function as thermal paste. Obviously, it's a lot less messy, which is why we use it this way. But it does just come off, and this just gives good heat transfer between them.
Nice. And this, of course, can store up to 4 different M.2s and it also has 4 SATA 6 gig ports, which is significantly fast. This is a speedy board.
It is, yeah, it is.
So obviously there'll be room for more M.2s should they decide. Thank you for the follow, by the way. Welcome to the show. Obviously, they can expand it with more M.2s if necessary. They can also add hard drives in the back of the case. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But yeah, as Hayden just pointed out, you've got those other 3 slots are going to be under those lower 2 heat sinks. So,
I think we're ready to put it in the case, right, Hayden? You want to do?
Yes.
Sweet.
Let's do that.
I'll slide. Actually, if you want to slide that, I'll put this case over there.
just checking out questions. Talking about the new the 7900X3D and the 7950X3D. Lots of conversations about that. Let's look at the case. We're looking at the top right now. Okay, so are there 2 radiators?
So there is 1 radiator in this build. Now we are using an EK radiator here.
Okay, because I thought you said a push-pull.
Yeah, I thought I push-pulled it. I guess I didn't. They're supposed to be, yeah.
So this cooler is, or this radiator, sorry, is going to be a lot. It's got a lot more volume in it, so it'll have more coolant. It is quite a bit thicker as well.
So there's a difference.
Yeah, this is a I don't know this exact model, the LC Solution Cool Stream. The PE is obviously from EK. You can see we've got, I'll try to get it here. Yeah, there we go. You can see we've got our fittings in here.
Okay.
So we'll be screwing the white fittings on top of those threaded portion. Maybe I shouldn't be calling those fittings, but
interesting.
Yeah.
We do have a question coming in from chat. It says, subject asks, I know you had mentioned putting a rig on an extra level like a stand and such for airflow. Do you reckon there's any other external factors to use to make a helpful contribution to the heat control, like an extra table fan, for example?
So really, I mean, an extra fan blowing into your system is going to help your cooling, but your system should not need it. If you're at the point where, you know, you got to start opening your side panel up with a box fan, you know, you might need a DJ, you might need a new system. No, it's just probably not performing how it should. That being said, the case design
I live with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. My design, but the one I have from people I will never buy a PC from again, has to have the side open or it will overheat. Mm-hmm. Like it gets to the point when I'm playing Siege that the hoses are hot to the touch.
Yeah, they should not be. You should be able to touch them at all times.
My poor little 9900 is just dying inside.
You're right.
All right, slow. Next up.
All right, so we'll mount the motherboard into the case, just like normal here. We've already got our water block on there. So same concept as applies. We're looking at our standoffs in there. They're those black things you can see. It's one thing that's nice about these white cases. You can really see the standoffs. I'll point them out real quick. We have 3 in the top, 3 in the middle, and 3 in the bottom.
Now, are standoffs just so the I/O can line up, or do standoffs serve a secondary purpose?
Yeah, so standoffs are going to keep your motherboard from touching the frame of the case. Obviously, we don't want our motherboard just laying on a sheet of metal that could short out some of the components on there. So that's what those standoffs do. They do raise it up so that your I/O fits in the slot, but they also, you know, prevent it from shorting out.
Nice.
And you can see the motherboard mounting holes are pretty easy to see. They've got this silver solder lands around there. And what that does is once the screw makes contact with those solder lands, it's obviously connected to the standoff and the case. That grounds it, so provides a ground as well.
You know, if somebody happens to be working on their PC while they're, say, standing on carpet or they don't have an anti-static mat to stand on, how would you go about grounding yourself before working on your PC?
So the biggest thing is just touch the side of your case, touch the metal frame. That's your case is a grounding point itself. So if you've got to work in an environment like that, you don't have a static mat like we do or a wrist strap or something like that, you can just touch the side of your case.
Cool.
I went to a tech school here in town and learned a little bit more about PCs. It was mostly for other electronics, but that was one of the biggest things I took away from there is like, you know, don't freak out if you got to build it in not the most optimal environment. Just, you know, just remember to rest your arm on the side of the case or just touch it, you know, anytime you're putting a component in.
I try and do mine always while I'm on hardwood floors, but with shoes on, not socks.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to point out we did manage to install the RAM early, or Hayden was just so fast I didn't get to see it done. I believe it was already on the board though. It is 2 16 gig sticks of Kingston DDR5 5600 RAM. Now that's a total of 32 gigs, and so if we're going to be pushing, I guess if this 13700 can be pushed at such a high rate because of the liquid cooling, what does that mean for the RAM?
So our RAM's going to function, you know, pretty much the same. With the open loop, it's really, since we have it on the CPU, it's really going to affect that performance. So this is DDR5. It's obviously blazing fast. 5600 is crazy. I need to upgrade my system, I think, to one of these. So
we'll just open loop yours.
That would be sick. We do my open loop.
Oh, dude, that'd be wicked.
I've been thinking about bringing in my PC because I think I'm ready to change cases. I don't know if that's something anybody would want to watch, like an upgrade, like a current PC just being case transferred. And I might upgrade some components while we're taking it apart, but it might be good to show the dismantle.
I'll case swap mine. We'll do it side by side.
There we go. Yeah. We can trade our parts.
There we go.
Pokemon
Perfect.
Cards.
Yeah.
I'll give you this sticker RAM for years.
Yeah. You can have my 1080 Ti.
We got people in chat saying that they absolutely would watch it.
Okay, yeah. That's definitely something we'll think about. Once I upgrade my PC, I think it would be kind of cool to show the, you know, this is what my dusty system looks like and you know, what to do, how to take stuff out.
How often do you clean it, Paul?
Not as often as I should. Not as often as I recommend people do.
I need to clean my streaming rig because it's air cooled, and I very rarely ever turn it off.
So I've got an Evolv X, so when I can pull the front panel off pretty easy. Whenever I pull off my dust filter that I've got right here, it's like a circle of dust for my fans. So I do wipe this one down pretty frequently. The front is my main intake on that, so, but it's definitely not as frequently as I should.
So on the average, how often should somebody blow out and clean out and vacuum out their system?
So really, I would say, you know, every 6 months. I mean,
Every 6 months is
probably every month is a good standard, but you know, I mean, life happens. I would just say try to get in there every 6 months. Most cases now have the magnetic filters, kind of like what I just saw, that are easy to take out. You can wipe those down, rinse them off, whatever you need to do. Obviously, if you rinse them off, just dry them off before you install them. But it's very easy to do. But you know, I would say every 6 months. If you get to like a year and you pull it off, you know, it might be like if you never change your lint filter or whatever on your dryer, and you can make like a blanket out of whatever comes off. That might be what your system will look like if you wait too long.
Maybe.
I had a friend of mine make a throw pillow.
Oh my god!
Out of all of the lint, he bought an empty pillowcase and just
filled it up.
every time he just filled this thing up with the lint from the dryer. And I'll be honest, it was soft, but it smelled amazing.
I was gonna just say that. I was like, I bet it smelled really good.
It smelled incredible. So I don't know what happened to that pillow because we don't talk anymore. But
that's funny. So, all right, case fans. That's what we'll do next. So we've got 4 of these extra that we'll be installing.
Awesome. Does the power consumption of this pump differ from the power consumption of, say, an AIO?
Yes, so it will consume a little bit more power. It's probably not going to be anything noticeable like on an energy bill or anything like that, but it will be a slight bit more. It is a better performing pump. This pump, obviously, it has more area that the fluid needs to flow through, which is a good thing as far as cooling goes, because that's more spots for the liquid to cool. But yep, that would be why. But it's nothing that you're going to notice.
Okay, awesome. So now we're getting these on. So we've got the 3 that are going to be pushing the air out through the top of the radiator. Now, is there a particular reason, just for conversation's sake, we're pushing, we're not pulling? Obviously, pulling is the less effective way.
Yeah, so pushing air through, if you're going to have your fans on one side of the radiator, which most builds do, typically you don't have a push-pull radiator set up. So if you got to pick one or the other, you want to be pushing air through the radiator. That allows more air to flow through, which takes more heat out of that radiator. Now, if you're in a situation with your case and you have to pull air through, that's perfectly okay. It will function fine. It's just if you do have the choice, you want to be pushing through.
India Temperance says he was allowed power tools. Yes, because otherwise this would take a lot longer. So on the average, you know, given the fact that there's a lot more to doing an open loop, Hayden, what's the time difference when it comes to assembling these for you when you're looking at what kind of time equipment for putting one of these together?
It depends on the case. But
okay.
So an 011 XL, we do those probably the most frequent. About a day. I can get it done in a day. It kind of depends.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes, you know, there's bad days where your tubes are just not working and your bins are not coming out the way they should, and you got to redo because, like I said, if the tube is slightly off, you're going to have to redo it. Like, you can't make it work.
Yeah, you can't straighten out a tube bend.
You can't stretch it.
What was that one we were looking at a couple days ago? When I pointed out the tube was a little off.
It was a little off.
It was, I think it was an Elite.
It was an Elite, yeah.
So I came over to Hayden and was like, that looks a little off. Like, let me pull that out. So I pulled it out and went to bend a new one. Well, the new one I bent, I think I cut it too short or something. Something was off, and it was like turned into a whole thing.
It was never not straight.
That's right. It was the fitting on the pump, right?
The pump was a little off.
So I pointed something out that probably shouldn't have been pointed out, and caused a lot of extra labor when it didn't need to be. So big oopsie for me there.
So,
good.
So then pump alignment and positioning and the way it's mounted does have a distinctive effect on the ability for you to line these things up.
Yeah, and it can
a lot
allow
that goes into this.
It can really kind of save you if you're just kind of slightly off on something if the fitting has some sort of rotation in it.
Yeah.
So, like say our 90-degree fitting that's on the pump here. I'm going to show it real quick, Hayden. Sorry to stop you. So this fitting right here, this is at a 90 degree, so it's coming out right here. It's a little hard to see on camera, but it's coming out 90 degree pointing up. So if our tube was maybe like slightly this way, I could spin this just a little bit to make some very small adjustments.
Okay. So next question, which one's the in and which one's the out and why?
So
the in would be right here, and the out would be right here. And it's only because that's the way they have it set up. It's with, you know, the manufacturer built that, so they get
Does
to
it
pick
have
the layout of it.
Does it help with reducing bubbles or air in the lines?
Yeah, so there will be bubbles later on.
That'll be a fun part that we get to show.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of bubbles.
Yeah.
Over time, like overnight and through testing, when it gets put into testing, those will dissipate. If they don't dissipate, obviously there's a lot of air in the line somewhere. You know, I would have to go in and, like, you know, fix it. But usually those air bubbles either go out fully done when they flush, or they get caught in testing.
Like, you know those,
Gotcha.
you know those like gyroscope machine things you see like astronauts in for like NASA
Yeah,
training? You see them
GeForce
rotating?
testers.
Yeah, we kind of pretend like we are the gyroscope machine, the gyroscoping machine, and do that with the case. Sometimes you got to move it all around to get the air to flow, to get the air to get out.
Especially if you have to drain a system.
Yeah, especially you have to drain it.
Draining
so.
is no fun.
And this is why I am not getting an open loop system, because I am not that good. We did have a code just get dropped in the chat. It is going to be LAV something. I just had it here, and I thought I stopped chat long enough. Dang it! It's an unlimited. So it was 200. Where did the code go?
It's gone.
Did I just scroll past it that far? Dang it, DJ, get it together. There we go. LAV A2QF. LAV A2QF.
I really
There we
like
go.
these code emotes. That one is sick.
Yeah, I dig it too. LAV A2QF. That is going to be one for everybody. That is a 200 entry code. GG. Yeah. We did one of those yesterday on stream, not yesterday, Sunday on stream, which was a lot of fun. Aqua 2 Quick Fortune. Yes. There we go. All right, so we've got these 3 fans over here coming in off the front. Now that's going to be pulling air in the case while it's pushing out the back and the top. We've also got the lights there, and since we've got that shot of the front of the case real fast, let's how many ports are on the front of this, and where are they positioned at?
Yeah, so they are up top. They're pretty easy to see right here. I'm going to throw the front panel on in just a sec, just to kind of show you. So we've got 2 3.0s right here, a Type-C, and a headset and mic button. Now, something to show when we get this front panel on, and this is one of the things I like about this case. So we obviously put our dust filter on first, and then we'll do our front panel. And our front panel has this door that covers that up to give it a nice sleek design. So now you can't see them.
Nice.
But you just push up on this top panel, and it flips up, and then you got access to that.
And then you got your RGBs that shine.
Yes.
And you got your RGBs on the back of this as well.
Anybody who remembers our Sunday show, we had a visitor from our friend Arizona Beaverhausen. Let y'all figure that code out. That was the name that I hit it in, and finally somebody got it, which was hilarious.
Nice.
Okay, so obviously this is going to be a little bit of since we've got 3 pushing in, 4 pulling out, but there's a little bit of a slowdown because of that radiator. Is this equal pressure, do you think, or is it still a little more negative pressure?
Yeah, I would say it's an equal pressure system. It's obviously, it might be slightly more tilted to negative, but I would consider it an equal pressure.
Temperance, I thought that was the name of your future child. Listen, the thought of me having a child is laughable at best already, for so many reasons. And then if I named it that is child services right there.
DJJR, that would be it right there.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
So what happens? So now is it important to get in the other peripherals before you start assigning tubes?
Yes.
Or you need the tubes in first?
I will.
Okay.
Basically, what I do, every single build I have, I will build it like normal, put all my stuff in, and tie it up, and then I will go and bin my tubes. But I think we should show off the GPU.
Yeah, I think we should as well. So let's go ahead. Let's slide this case over here. We'll get out this GPU
Just
here.
because it's so cool.
Just because, yeah, this box is cool.
The box
Shout out
the box
to,
itself is.
This thing is pretty cool. So we've already got this out for measurement. So you can see this is our Founders 4090 box right here.
Yes.
This on here.
That is a 24 gig processor. 24 gig GPU.
So now you get
it's huge. Now
it opens like a little present.
Are you ready for this?
Oh,
I'm trying to get it centered on camera. There. Look at that.
Oh wow. That's honestly a great setup.
It's cool. It is really cool.
Are there any advantages to having a Founders Edition versus a second dealer?
So, kind of. As far as performance goes, gaming-wise, you know, some people might lean towards the other manufacturers because they do come with a slightly faster speed overclock on them. Honestly, they're going to perform very close to the same. It kind of comes down to looks when you're talking this high end. I like the Founders Edition. I think they're really sleek. I think they look nice.
Especially vertical mounted.
Yeah, especially vertical mounted. So when we get this thing in the system, this is what it's going to be looking like this in the side panel. It's going to look really solid. This thing has a lot of weight to it. Obviously, you know, opening one of these up, you want to make sure you keep this dongle so that you can plug all of the cables into it. This is going to be taking 4/8 because it is a 4090. This is a power hungry card. So we'll get this out. Hayden will go ahead and, do you want to put that in there now? You want to do video card next?
I think as long as we can get our stuff plugged in on the bottom of the board first, then we can get it
sounds good. So Hayden's going to plug in some of the case connectors, that USB, Type-C, all that stuff we pointed out, and then we'll get to our video card.
So I have a question for you. When it comes to this, because we have to have the consideration of where all the tubes are going to be positioned, but also this is a huge and heavy card, which means it is going to need an anti-sag bracket. Is this going to be a normal one that we use, or is there something special we need to do to make sure that we are providing enough maneuverability for the tubes?
When you vertical mount it.
So we're vertical mounted.
Vertical mounted?
Yes.
What does that mean?
So what I was just showing there is when this sits in the case, it's going to be standing up. So when this thing's all assembled, this is how you're going to be looking at your video card. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit lower than that. You can see these 3 slots here in the back where my fingers are coming through. That's what it's going to mount to. And how that is going to work.
With the riser cable.
Yep, is with the riser cable. So we've got a riser cable
cable.
This basically is an extension of your PCIe by 16 slot. So we'll obviously plug this into our slot. This will mount into the case like this, and our card will sit in it.
Oh, cool.
It looks really good.
And so there won't be any need for a GPU sag bracket because it gets...
Interesting.
It's held up by that riser cable and the case itself.
Perfect. And that base just kind of screws into the frame on the bottom?
Yes.
Yep. This is made for this case. So.
Oh, okay.
This is a Phanteks part right here.
They come with your Elite if you buy the Elite case.
And of course, anybody who hasn't seen the Elite, those things are huge. You could probably fit a toddler inside of it.
Yeah. For sure. You fit a couple. You could fit twins.
In Need of Temperance kind of made a comment that is also a good question, and it is, I always find it weird when a GPU that big only has one fan.
So this thing actually, with the design of this, it's obviously very heavy, so it's got heat shield, but it's got one fan on this that you can see, and the other fan is on the other side. So this does have two fans. NVIDIA is just being, next level with their engineering of the cooling here. So this does have 2 fans, just one on each side.
Does one blow and one suck, or is it? Sorry, is one intake, one outtake?
So they both. So each one, you're looking at the intake on both sides. So this one is an intake, and then on the other side, it's an intake. So they're kind of blowing in opposite directions here. Now the one on the end, if I can get this angle right, you can kind of see through it, and that's because it's just the heat pipes and the fins that are coming through. So yeah, if I get this kind of when I'm rotating, you can kind of see my arm through it.
Interesting.
And that's just it's just a bunch of fins in there for the heat to come out and the fan to blow the heat off of those fins.
Listen, it was not intentional, people. I'm going to be very fair. It was just poor wording. Dang it. Yeah, there we go. Divino's in the house. Says, my 2 favorite builders. Yay.
Hey. Oh, I see,
Okay.
Subject about overclocking. Yeah, so what overclocking is just pushing whatever you're over. You can overclock CPU, memory, video card. Typically when you're overclocking, you're referring to CPU. And that's just any time you're making the CPU run at a higher frequency than what it came out of the box as. So if your CPU was 3.5 gigahertz and you put it at 3.51 gigahertz, technically you have overclocked your CPU. Now usually you want to push it a little bit past that, but that's what overclocking is. So any component, if your RAM is 5600 speed and you put it to 5650, you've technically overclocked your RAM.
Okay.
All right.
I didn't know that, like, and that still baffles and blows my mind that we can overclock RAM, period.
Yeah, it's not, honestly, it's something that if you're like chasing benchmarks and wanting to be like the top system in the world, you do. I am not a fan of overclocking memory. You can usually run into issues. Memory gets pretty complicated. It's not just one frequency that it runs at. There's timings that get taken into place. You could have 2 sticks of RAM that run at the same speed, but the timings are different, and that can throw stuff off when you start overclocking it. So I prefer to stay away from that. You know, the amount of like FPS you gain in a gaming situation from overclocking your memory is just not worth the hassle, in my opinion. The juice ain't worth the squeeze.
Nope.
So you like that one, DJ?
Got it.
No. All right, so we are going to install our video card next.
Yes.
Okay, so this will be really fun to show. So this is obviously a vertical mount. So Hayden's got that ribbon cable that we were talking about. So he's going to mount that white part to the case. There's already screw holes in the case for that to go to. Like I said, this is a Phanteks part that you can get for your case.
There's a lot of forethought that goes into these designs. And I know that sounds stupid to say because it's a computer case. They need to be well managed and well designed with lots of options. But I would never have thought to do that. And it makes total sense. And it seems like it'd be a lot less wear on the board as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're really protecting that top PCIe slot there. You know, it's not going to have this giant card in there.
So here's a question for you. How many PCIe slots does this board have and does it matter which one that you plug it into?
Yeah, so this one has, obviously we have our top PCIe by 16 and a bottom PCIe by 16. Looks like 2 by 1s and a by 4. Not used to seeing a by 4 on there.
By 4 is a little weird.
Now those slots, you can see this ribbon here when we go, so you can see how this is mounted in. Now that does cover up some slots. Now this ribbon cable is flexible, so if we had a smaller card, we can make it work and kind of finagle it a little bit, but this is obviously going to be
That's what I was wondering is, whether or not you could use a lower one or if it should always be the top one.
Yeah, you want to use the top one, the top PCIe by 16 slot, because usually the bottom one might not have pins all the way through. It might be the length of a PCIe by 16, but really only functioning like a PCIe by 8. So your card would function, it just wouldn't be getting power, wouldn't be functioning like it would on the top slot.
Got it. Okay. Lost Drake is in the house. Hello, friend. How are you?
I got you, yeah.
Okay. Now, are we vertically mounting this card because it is a water cool and we want to make sure we've got enough room, or is it more aesthetic based?
It's aesthetically, and then here, I'll just show you. Probably grab that. If we were to normally do it, we're hitting that pump. Even if I were to move the pump over, it still would be hitting.
It's still gonna hit it.
So we basically, instead of being set back, we're pulling it out, putting it vertical mount, and then that just gives us enough room. And
got it.
The way I have these tubes, as we'll see later, it frames off the GPU really nicely.
Gotcha. Well, this will be fun. I can't wait to see it. I have one more question. Well, I've got tons of questions. Now, with regards to the system, obviously. Does the pump also have internal lighting?
I do not. Yeah, I think it does. Yeah.
Yep, the pump will have RGB coming out of it.
Actually has a 4-pin RGB.
Yeah, 4-pin, and it's got a Molex. Let's go, our favorite.
Subject. That is a good question. So, whose decision is it to do the vertical stand? Is that something the customer requested, or is it just because that's what's needed in order to do this build?
It's what was needed to do.
Got it. Okay.
We could probably find a way to get that pump res in there, and have the card mounted horizontally. It just wouldn't look as good. Obviously, with these open loop systems, our builders like Hayden, they get a lot of freedom as far as designing how it is. Like you heard him say, he framed off the tubes with the case. Like we come up with all sorts of designs for these tube bendings. So even
some of them get pretty unique.
Because when you're getting into open loop, sometimes you got a whole bunch of different components. So the next Evolv X that we open loop might have a different pump res combo, which means the fittings are going to line up differently.
It
So
might
the
have a
whole
different,
tube's totally different.
It might have a different route for tubes. It all can, can all be
Okay,
different.
that makes sense. All right, so I'm gonna get those cables.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, this will be, I mean, yeah, we've got our 2 fill bottles here. That'll be a really cool part to show. So. That's. Oh.
And yeah,
So,
it would need a bigger.
Go,
My back?
Go ahead, DJ, with that question.
There we go.
That's a good question.
Okay, so the question is, if you're going to be water cooling your GPU and your CPU and your GPU, what extra steps would need to be taken? And would you require a larger pump with a larger reservoir, or would one that size also work for both devices?
So yeah, that is a great question. So there's a couple different solutions for that. Now, you can do, so right now this is an open loop, single loop system, meaning we have our one loop that's for our CPU.
CPU only.
CPU only. So when we get into where we are doing open loop for our GPU and our CPU, most of the time we're doing 2 completely separate loops in that system. So we'll have a pump res radiator for one loop and then another pump res radiator for the second loop.
And then we would have a distro plate.
And then we'd have a distro plate
that houses all of that liquid and dissipates it to different.
And what gets cool with that, if you have 2 separate loops, you can run 2 separate colors. And that's where it can look really good. So you can have like a red, blue.
It'll be all separate.
Yeah, like the liquids never mix. You can have different fittings on different things. It looks really good. So.
It looks really good.
You are tempting me so much right now. That's that's incredible.
Do it.
I want to roll back up to a couple questions that we had just at top. Subject asked, what am I running for a rig? Depends. If you're talking about my PC for gaming, I have an i9 9900K and an RTX 2070 with 32 gigs of RAM versus the Ryzen 5 3600X on my streaming rig, and that's got 32 gigs of RAM with a RTX 1070 and a AverMedia Live Gamer 4K Duo for my capture card. Those are my rigs presently.
All right, let's go ahead and get this card in there. Let's see this. So you can see in the back part here where, oh, perfect shot. Wow, this looks great. So we're lining this up. This is just a slot, just like your motherboard. So you're looking for that to be lined up along with your ports on the back being lined up, and we're wanting to hear that satisfying click from the slot locking in place.
Red, white, and blue systems, that's awesome. Okay. All right. Let's see here. So this is definitely a three stack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this
card.
is a 3-slot card here.
Okay, that's
And
fine.
Greg wants to know what there's a Live Gamer 4K that I have, and then I have a Live Gamer Duo. The Live Gamer 4K allows me to be able to pass through with zero delay at 1440p 144. So I can actually game at the fidelity that I like without having to lose any frames because I'm passing through a capture card. It's got its own onboard processor, so it's going to encode everything automatically without issue, and that saves a lot of GPU and CPU load because it's all happening inside the card. Now the Duo is different because it also can do the same thing as the Live Gamer 4K, but the Duo has 3 ports on it. You've got your pass-through for your gaming PC or your console, and the other one is an input. So if you've got a DSLR, you can run full-size HDMI from your DSLR straight in, and then you've got it, and that will process separately. So you can put your camera on top of everything else, and you'll get it all fluid, all full resolution, and then it will downscale as needed in OBS. It's really awesome. And of course, yeah, I can't promote that. It's not my show. But yeah, that's what I use, and that's why. Yeah. Greg's, oh wait, hold on. What Avermedia card do you have? We've got that. Going to Dallas. Nice. Last break, maybe going to Dallas. That's awesome. That'll be a lot of fun. Everybody, by the way, Dallas is going to be the first weekend in June. You know it'll be there. Your chance to get your hands on some amazing CLX PCs. Everybody give a round of applause to Hayden who got that in there. Okay, that would be awesome. Now, I don't remember if the Founders cards light up at all.
They do not.
They do not. Okay. Yeah, this would be a great, it would have been, so it'll be a good build for like a full color display too, because that would be the fan side, wouldn't it?
So both,
now,
since with this video card, both have fans, both sides have fans, so we'll
yeah,
have
that's
a little bit
excellent.
Of like the GeForce RTX there, but yeah.
So I would guess, because honestly, other cards, you've got all 3 fans on one side, but that would mean that they would all be right there next to the glass. So is that part of the reason why you chose a Founders Edition? Because you have that, you also have the fan on the backside to be able to bring and push that fresh air in along with the air off the glass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
That's
sure.
the main
that
reason.
is, yeah.
Gotcha. That makes total sense. Makes total sense. Excellent.
Cool.
All right, so we've got our graphics card, we've got our RAM. We've got the CPU on, plus we've got our CPU block on. So we've got the hard drive in. Now we're going to work on that power supply, right? Okay, so for a power supply, this is our first time ever using this on stream. This is a 1,000-watt Silverstone Strider. This is an 80+ platinum. Since I've never seen us use one of these on the stream, tell me a little bit about this power supply.
Yeah, so like you said, the Silverstone 1,000-watt 80+ platinum. This is a fully modular power supply. So you can see me pulling these covers out of these ports right now. Fully modular means none of the cables that come with this power supply are pre-soldered in. So we're going to be plugging in every cable that we need, and then the rest will go in the accessories box. So this power supply comes with these neat covers that go over here. Kind of a cool touch there. You don't really see that on many others. And what this is going to allow is for us to only use the cables that we need for the system. So it's going to be less cables to manage, going to be a cleaner look, less restricted airflow is probably the biggest form function about it. Being fully modular.
There are 4 different colored ports on there. What are those for?
Yeah, so you can see here are 4 different colored ports. Now every modular power supply is a little different on how they label their ports. So some power supplies will have under each port, it will be labeled with what it is. This power supply has a diagram you can see right here labeling it. So these 4 ports here are PCIe 8-pin connectors. So these are for our video card. So the end of our video card cables that come with it,
into the power supply.
the end that gets plugged into the power supply will also be blue. So blue goes to blue.
Okay.
Like that. And then this will go to our video card. Not sure why they make them blue. They definitely don't have to be designated differently.
I think that's just what they wanted to do.
Yeah, I think it's just a design they like. Now, I could see it being somewhat beneficial when you're comparing your 8-pin for a video card versus 8-pin for CPU, but those are a little bit, they can be kind of confusing, but once you have them in your hand, they're pretty easy to tell the difference.
I guess you could say that design blew our minds.
Sure did.
I'm so fired. Alrighty. So wait, subject mentions. Let's go back up here. Below, for running a double monitor setup, obviously it's recommended to have the hertz be the same, but have you ever used anything over 165? And if so, what's your ideal hertz or FPS for a gaming desktop?
Oh yeah. So my system that I'm running at home, I have a triple monitor setup. My left one hardly gets used. It's for my Switch. So I don't really use that ever. And then my main monitor is 144 hertz 2K. And then my side monitor is just a regular 1080p 60 hertz side monitor that I have Discord or YouTube up or whatever. My ideal setup right now is 144 hertz at 2K. I think it looks amazing.
Yeah.
It's a solid setup.
Agreed.
I've gamed on like the 165, the 250s even, the 250 hertz, and they look great too. But honestly, I can't tell that big of a difference coming from 144 going up. Yeah. Now, if you're coming from 60 hertz to 144, that's, to me, that's where you really notice the difference. Yeah. So
massively.
I would say, and I mean, my PC can run 144 hertz at 2K resolution, which is good. But even if your PC couldn't do that, I would opt for going 144 hertz at 1080p versus 60 hertz at 2K or 4K even. I think the refresh rate is way more beneficial and noticeable than the actual resolution.
And I'll tell you, like I was at 240 before at 1080, but the problem with being at 240 is my maneuvering became erratic because it's so pristine and so precise. The training your response to that kind of an environment requires a significant level of precision that can't necessarily be I would say reproduced or replicated out in the field, especially if you're going to shows and stuff like that. And if your system's powerful enough, like go with, in my opinion, I would rather go at a solid 1440 at 144. That's consistently 144 every single time it's on and running a game, as opposed to going up to 4K and running between 30 to 75 FPS. I would just rather have that consistent.
Yeah, I agree completely.
But that's just me.
I like any game I open now, I just immediately go to the frame settings and just auto lock it to 144, and then you just don't even have to worry about it. So, another thing I was going to say too is once you switch over, if you're coming from like a traditional 60 hertz going to that 144, the first thing you want to do is obviously open your monitor settings, like mine's GeForce Experience because it's got G-Sync. If you've got V-Sync, I'm sure it's something else. But you want to make sure you actually turn that frame rate on, because I got this monitor and I was gaming on it for like 2 months and being like, oh, this thing looks great because I was running at 2K, but I didn't really notice anything other than the resolution. And then I realized, oh, you got to go in there and turn on, like change the refresh rate. And once I did that, it just blew my mind. Like when you're moving your mouse across your desktop, you can tell the difference between 60 hertz and 144. So that was always just so impressive to me. Just moving my mouse around my desktop was noticeable.
And so what's funny is because when my first time trying it, I went up to took my Xbox One X upstairs because it could do 240, right? Mm-hmm. I plugged into at 1080p 240 on my television upstairs, and it's just from a controller standpoint, I had to drop my sensitivity down so fast because a little bit I was jerking all over the place. I couldn't get it to hold still, and I thought that was fascinating that the increase in FPS really causes a different level of response, from your eye-hand coordination. If your muscle memory is built out at a specific speed, the jumping to a different speed can be a little bit jarring at first, especially if you're making a giant jump. Now, if you're jumping from 60 to say 120, and then you hit 144, and then you go up to something higher like, 175, 180 before you hit 240, that might be an easier way of progressing. I just don't know that it's necessary, in my opinion, but everybody's got their thing that everybody processes stuff in the same way, in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
All right, Hayden, what you up to?
Trying to get the CPU cables plugged in.
Gotcha. So is that, obviously that's with the less space because it's already there, is that more difficult with the block, with that water block in place?
It's not difficult with the water block. It's difficult with this top radiator in.
Yeah, so
gotcha.
This top radiator is bigger than the radiators that come with AEOLUS. It's a little bit thicker. So that just takes more of that space away, where you can see his hand there working, trying to get that plug in. Luckily,
Radical brings up a very good point. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, luckily Hayden's the master, so
I also have small hands.
Yeah.
Radical says screen size also makes a difference too. Jumping from a monitor to a TV, absolutely correct. When I was on that, I was on a 70-inch 3D TV, and so I was upstairs playing. Oh God, what was it called? BioShock. I was upstairs playing BioShock in 3D. We have active shutter glasses for our TV, and so I turned all the lights up in the house. My housemate was out. I think he was out to dinner with some friends or something, and so I'm in there playing, and it's just absolutely terrifying in 3D. It was ridiculous.
Dude, that's awesome.
It was wild. It was so wild. Like everything just came out of the corners. It was bonkers. And Sharp makes these super smart TVs that they can create a depth field based on the 2D image, and it'll stretch it front to back so that you've got things. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. All right. But yeah, so yeah, having I think I'm on a 27-inch here with my, I've got a 27-inch that I game on, and then I believe my production monitor is also a 27.
Yeah, that's what my main monitor is, a 27. I think it's a great size. I might be ready to go up to 32, but the 27 feels good.
Yeah. RIP 3D TVs, yeah, right. They were in for a hot minute, and then they were out. And I'll be honest, because you have so much problems, I had problems with screen tearing, right? And that big issue was because anytime that you've got other lights on, it conflicts. So you can only watch them in the dark. You really don't want light behind you because it'll reflect into the back of the glasses. So you want to make sure you've got lights off in the house and it's dark. And then you have to be sitting a lot of times in the right position to see it correctly, or else you get that weird blurring effect. So I was like, whatever. Go back to they need to go back to stereoscopic, where it's just the pink and the green versions, right? Because that made everything perfect. That always worked great. Liquid Death, I'm sad the PCs cost so much, yes, but they last so much longer now. I'm running Toothpick says, what's up, Toothpick? How you doing? I'm running 3 Alienware 27-inch, 140-inch monitors, and they are lovely. Nice. Nice.
Nice. Yeah, I think 140 is good. I mean...
I'm running 2165.
2165.
Only because when I bought my 32-inch curved secondary vertical mount monitor.
Secondary?
Yeah, I bought it as my main.
That's a lot of words.
And so I just switched it to
a
secondary. That's the only reason I have two 165s.
That's cool.
If I didn't, I would just do 60.
Yeah, I think the 165 is obviously becoming more of the baseline than 144.
It's funny though, because when I did buy that, 165 was unheard of.
Yeah, right. I know. And now we'll get monitors in. I'll grab one for an order, and it's like, this thing is like 250. I'm like, I didn't even know that was the thing.
Yeah.
So
the upside is having a monitor that overperforms, and then if you don't have to necessarily clock it up that high, but it gives you that little bit of ooch in the event that, because if you end up with trying to push more frames than your monitor can handle, that can be an issue sometimes, and you'll end up with a little bit of it, it becomes a little bit problematic. But yeah, if you got Drake's got a BenQ Mobius 240-inch, 27-inch, but he runs them all at 144. Yes.
There you go.
Because Drake is friends with the people at BenQ.
Hey, nice.
Yeah.
Man, Drake, you and DJ are making me almost spend money on Destiny 2. Watching your guys' streams, I'm like, oh, this looks like so much fun.
Oh God, yeah. Well, and Liquid Death came in and hung out with me and Quans the other night, and we rolled through and got through a couple. I think we did some missions, did some dungeons, did some nightfalls. It was fun. It was a blast.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah, Paul, you need to come and play with us sometime.
I need to.
Oh, sure.
I need to buy it. How often do you have to buy a season pass for it? That's what turns me
Isn't
off.
it every season?
Is it like 4 times a year, or is it like
I think
one time a year?
I think it was, if you get the 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Drake, you're Destiny. It's 1 a year. Yeah.
1 a year.
So it's basically
that's a little bit more swallowable. If I'm paying $15 a month for WoW, I can just break whatever that is down into 12-month payment in my head and use that as justification.
Subject has another question. It says, apologies for the bombardment of questions. I'm putting together my setup for myself, and y'all are saving me tons of money and stuff, specifically my choice of monitors. So, as always, appreciate you. You're welcome, dude. Absolutely. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, for sure. Ditto what DJ said. It's great. I'm glad to hear we're helping you out. That's what we want to do here.
Now, Remy Main says, always lock your refresh at or below your monitor's refresh rate, or you will get the hottest your computer can get until it shuts off.
Always lock it.
I mean, I run mine. I have a 144 hertz monitor. Then I run it at 144, and oftentimes my frames can get up above there. But I've never had my system shut off.
Yeah, that shouldn't cause your system to shut off. If your system's getting hot enough to where it's shutting down to protect itself, you've probably got something else going on. But usually in that case, like the overheating thing is usually an easy fix. It's like a scary problem to run into, but it's usually an easy fix. Maybe you've got a fan not working on your AIO or something stuck in it, too much dust. I mean, cleaning the dust out of it can honestly fix that.
That can help a lot.
If that just if your system was running fine for weeks and months before and then it started to do that, I would assume your thermal paste is fine and all that, so you really shouldn't have to take anything off. But just kind of look at your fans. Maybe feel the air that's coming out of your case on the exhaust. That can give you some indications there as well. But also, to your point, if you don't have that capped frame rate and your video card is trying to do more than what it should, that definitely will cause your system to heat up. Your video card should just slow itself down before you get to a point of your system shutting down.
In theory, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Probably didn't peel off the plastic from the cooler. That'll get you every time. I think we've all been a victim of that. Those Intermax coolers, sometimes it's hard to tell.
Yep,
and then
that is. We've talked
separated by a sheet of plastic in your water pump.
Yeah.
It gets hot, it gets melted, and then it smells real funny.
Yeah.
So,
rotate this a little bit here, Hayden, if that's all right. So Hayden's working his way through the cables now, doing the pretty standard tie-up that we do on the Evolvs. There's obviously a few more cables due to that pump res combo. But really, the tie-up is honestly about the same. The video card cables will be run a little differently since we have our vertical mount GPU. And then there's just a couple extra RGB connectors to plug in. But as far as plugging everything in, it's pretty much all the same.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
The only hard part is getting your VGA cables through the side now because we're doing a vertical mount.
Mm-hmm. You do get a little bit of extra give right there. This could be a case where the dongle is actually helping you out, giving you a little bit more length.
Okay. Wow, this is a lot. Now, this is a little bit different than how you usually do it. I mean, we've got it stretched out, whereas usually you're very vertical in alignment, like you're always in the case when you're doing this. Now you're kind of laying it out. What's the advantage to doing it this way in this kind of a scenario?
Well, in this case, since we are vertical mount, if you can see in the front, we have this little piece right there. Usually our VGA cables run through that. But since our vertical mount is, our GPU is like right over that, we're not going to be able to do it. So we're going to have to go up and over that GPU. So all this is doing is I'm going to be able to fish this through.
You can see there, yep, there comes that cable.
You can see that cable wiggling. That's what I'm
Gotcha.
getting through.
see him pull this out. The power connector is obviously on top right there. You can see him plugging that in.
There we go.
Just like that.
There we go.
That looks so clean, dude.
It really does. Usually these dongles are kind of annoying, but in a vertical mount situation like this, it kind of gives it a really good clean look.
I'm going to be honest, I'm super surprised that these companies haven't made 90-degree angle plugins.
So you can get them from CableMod now. CableMod's who we get most of our sleeve cables from. They have a ton of different, it is a brand new thing. They have a ton of different styles. There's like 90-degree, then like offsets, but then it also depends on how the connector is mounted on the video card. Sometimes the tab's on the top, sometimes on the bottom. So there's probably like 20-something different models of these tiny little connectors. I've never personally used one, so I can't really comment on them. Yeah, I imagine they are really good in a pinch.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll start seeing all the power supply manufacturers just include a cable that works, which I'm sure they will. Some power supply manufacturers are already including cables that work for like the 4080s, like the 2 8-pins going into it. This is obviously a 4 one. So like we did a build on the show, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, that we were using a Phanteks white power supply, and they actually, Phanteks just threw in an extra cable for a 2 8-pin into a 12-pin.
Purple one, actually.
It was on that one. Okay, yeah, so.
Gotcha. Interesting.
It's kind of like NVIDIA comes out with cables that takes these things. It takes a while for the rest of the industry to adapt and get a cable that meets specifications and all that good stuff.
Gotcha.
You know what
Interesting.
I noticed?
Okay.
Oh, wait, no, okay, it did. I was worried that our Silverstone power supply did not come with a floppy pin connector, but praise the Lord, it does have one. Okay.
No need to worry.
Yeah, no
they
need
have
to worry.
one.
Yeah.
Nightclaw's in the house. Shamos is here. PlayStation Loco's in the house. Yes, we've got tons of new emotes. They're lots of fun. Lots of fun.
Yeah, shout out Travis over at Splitfish TV for making those emotes.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
He's such a good artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he used to work here, now he's freelancing, so pretty cool.
He made mine.
Did he?
He made my little emotes.
Nice.
Lost Drake has been adamant lately that I am refresh my stuff on my stream, so that is a new project that will be happening.
Nice.
Oh, Lord. So, is that creative... Once you finally get it started, you're like, oh, okay, fine. So obviously you can see all the spines and tines, which once Hayden's done, we'll go about clipping that off. You look perplexed, so what's next?
Well, I need to reach my hand back here and unplug the 3-pin.
I was going to say, is it difficult for you to see where you're plugging things in because of the graphics card?
Yeah, so usually that's why I plugged everything in first. But I forgot that I was not just plugging in a 3-pin. I was plugging in a 3-pin to a 2 3-pin splitter.
That way we can plug in both of our RGB components here.
So that's my bad.
So what's cool here is, oh, never mind. I was going to point out the button, but we're using a riser card.
I mean, the button.
This case has
the button's still
on this card.
Still there.
Yeah, the button is still there on the board.
Yeah, so, it's just not actually usable.
Almost got to talk about how much I love that button.
I mean, there's no reason why you can't.
It's great. I love it.
It's just not something we're going to be using.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
We're going to press it for fun.
No, we actually have to press it because we have to unplug it.
Oh, okay.
Because what I need to get is behind...
Oh, there we go.
Button press.
Oh, yeah.
Because I need to get back behind it.
Okay, yeah.
That's why. Paul, you're right.
Sweet. Yeah, so like I was saying, a great time to show off that button. The
There you
quick
go.
release button for
Perfect.
the top slot PCIe slot there. Very nice if you're ever in a spot like this where you got to be taking out your video card. You don't got to reach deep down in there to try to disconnect that clip. Sometimes it's hard to get a finger in there, so you get tempted, so you want to use like a flathead screwdriver, but the clip is plastic, so you know that can go wrong pretty quick.
There we go. Again, I can see now why these take so much longer to do. There's just a lot to it.
Yeah, it's kind of like we talk about when we build ITX, like how it's just a cramped space, and that's why those take a little bit longer. It's a little bit of the same reasoning on this. There's so much going inside of these that the space gets cramped very quickly.
Yes.
But the end product is so awesome.
There we go. Okay, so now we're back into getting all the cables connected and set off, and then we're going to go into the clipping of the things, and then the reservoir.
Yeah, so
as it were.
We can talk about all the routing of the tubes.
And we do have our CPU plugged in, our 24-pin plugged in, our video card plugged in.
All of our RGB should be.
All of our RGB should be plugged in. Our SATAs are plugged in. So really, there's just a few more cables to do back here, but this will go pretty quickly.
And to answer your question, yes, I will be going live later today. In fact, I'm teaming up with Lost Drake for some Dying Light 2. We're going to go run some zombies, smack them around a little bit. Throw them off buildings.
I've still yet to play that.
And everybody's like, that is just rude. Why would you have to kick them off a building? Because it's fun, and sometimes they splatter.
It's because they implement it in the game,
I have issues.
so now you have to do it.
Yes,
absolutely. That game looked pretty dang good, I will say.
Oh, they're so amazing. Again, Dying Light and Dying Light 2 are two of my favorite games. I love working with Techland on that. They have come in and dropped so much stuff in my channel. It's ridiculous. I've got exotic weapons for days. And of course, anybody that I play that game with, I will drop you weapons because that's what I do. I'll give you a weapon or two to hang out with, and that will help you against the big baddies. I'm not playing the game for you, but I'm definitely there to share some of the spoils. Speaking of sharing, while you're getting those little things tied up in the back, I would love to share with everybody here one of the best things about how this system got built, and that is for our website. Over at CLXgaming.com, we make it as easy as possible to go inside our site and build your PC from the ground up. Whether you're choosing an open loop system or a closed loop system, we've got a myriad of cases in all different shapes, sizes, and colors, along with designs. You can choose a closed loop, open loop, air cooling if you want, but we have liquid, so there you go. And you don't have to be an expert to do it. If by chance you happen to choose two things that aren't necessarily compatible, don't worry. The little green light turns onto a yellow and it says solve conflict, and it will show you right there what your options are. If you have a DDR5 board, but you've chosen DDR4 RAM, it says here, these are the boards that will fit DDR4 RAM, or this is the RAM that will meet the needs of this board. And make sure that you have a compatible system that is ready to go when it goes to testing. But don't worry. You don't have to build your own system on your own. We have hundreds of pre-built, designed, and ready-to-ship models that have already gone through testing and are waiting for a new home to make somebody very, very happy. So check it out. For all of your branding and personalization needs, all you've got to do is head over to CLXgaming.com today. There we go. Dun, 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 dun. It's Rock says, show Paul! Show Paul what?
Hey, I'm here.
that is Paul's Rock? Jazz hands. And it's Paul's Devil of Jazz hands. Yeah. Ta-da!
Thank you, Rox.
In another life, Paul was a cheerleader.
Hey, it's called a yell leader. Yeah.
There we go. There we go.
A merman.
How many zip ties did I use?
The merman, Dad. Merman.
Yeah.
How many zip ties did I use?
Yeah,
We've been doing that now.
On the side. All right, what do you think?
Guesses.
Guesses for zip ties that Hayden used. He's about to do his dopamine hit of snipping everything.
Yes. While he's snipping, I got to ask a question. Did anybody else in chat figure out the Arizona Beaverhausen
13, 16,
yet?
16 was my guess.
16's your guess?
Yeah.
Hey,
We got
I told you,
we
you
got
don't
27, 13, 14, 16 coming in from Ilfane.
I'm gonna go with 11. I'm gonna underdo it a little bit.
There we go.
Silent cutting. Here we go. Are you counting along the way?
13.
13. Anybody guess 13? Let's see. Ooh, Venom Strike did.
There we go. Yeah. Look at that. Venom Strike's got it. I don't know what you win, but you win something.
You win.
I will say this. Just for funs and giggles, I don't know if Ivory will let me. I did have an unlimited code that I premiered on my channel on Sunday. Do you care if I share it in here? I don't feel like that should be an issue, but I want to check first.
Wait, let's go ahead and...
For those people who missed my stream on Sunday where I gave away a code.
All right, so our cables have been managed. So there we go. Looks, you know, typically like another... Oh, there you go. Looks
Arizona Beaverhausen.
And yeah, Arizona Beaverhausen.
Look at that. So clean.
Yeah.
Now, we've got 7 fans, and there's obviously 8 spots on that. So you only need 1 lighting controller for this build this time.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So typically, this is where we would throw our panels on, see if the system fires up, and call it good. But now we get to the fun part.
We get to have this.
So should we put the doors on the back
I
now?
always put the doors on.
Doors on now. We'll
what
show
I
it. Yeah. So this case does have a few doors. What we're going to put on now are cable management cover doors. These things are great. They look amazing. And where did I put them? Is a good question. Hiding behind the front panel. Thank you, Hayden. You want the filter? Or
There
not?
we go.
Oh yeah, the filter.
That is helpful.
Yeah.
That's encouraging.
Be very nice.
Before you do that, one thing I want to point out, because I don't know if people realize this, but notice how there's a different spacing on that bottom fan versus the top two. It's a little farther down there. And in case anybody's asking questions, that's what helps with the airflow in the undercarriage down by the power supply.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out. So if this case did have a storage, like 3.5-inch mechanical drive, which customer might be adding when they get this, those are, you can mount those kind of all throughout this case, but the first mounting point that we use is the bottom, and so that fan gives good airflow to those storage drives. All right, so
Liquid, that is going to be an Ivory question.
there are the doors.
There we go.
going on.
I do love the fact that it has these. Yep.
And
There we go. It has these panel covers because the rear door also is on hinges, and this makes it just a cleaner look the way that it comes all the way across in the back.
Yep. And then if we ever have to mess with anything in here and you don't want to take the whole thing off, you just open the door.
Yes. The one thing I will say is, in the event that you ever do have to do any kind of work on your system where you're having to play with the cable management, do yourself a favor and take a picture of it the way that you found it so that you can put it back the way that you found it, because that is probably the optimal way for it to be addressed. All right.
All righty.
Now to the fun, ridiculous part. We get to play with tubing.
Yes.
No.
So we've got our tubes pre-built that we showed at the beginning of the show. Now, getting into another liquid cooler component here, we've got our fittings that we have been talking about. So what we're using for this build is Primo Chill fittings. These come in all sorts of colors that you can select to match your build or do whatever crazy colors you want. So we're using white for this build. That's what this customer has selected. So you can see, I'll get one of these out. These do come with O-rings that will seal them to the component that they're screwed onto, and this is what we'll actually be seeing here. So these are the white fittings. So yeah, we'll start putting the fittings onto the tubes first, obviously, and then the tubes will go into where we're going. So you can see this is how Hayden does it right here. Fitting on, and then you got your O-ring that you put on there, and then the other end of the tube, fitting, and then O-ring again.
Yep.
Now Hayden already, like we said, has pre-bent these tubes so they'll fit into where they go. So he knows where these tubes are going. But this is the part where it really gets labor intensive, where you have to measure and
this is where you're going to decide what tube goes where.
So we will...
Okay, so we've got washer, fitting washer, inside the.
So just
that
fitting
ring.
first, then O-ring.
Okay, got it. Fitting then.
There you go. Yep. And now you can see this right here, this silver part. So this is the other end of the fitting. So this is what that white part's going to screw onto. So when we were installing those components and you saw kind of this chrome stainless steel, that's what this part was. And this part does have an end with an O-ring already on it that goes into the component itself.
And you want to make
Oh,
sure
gotcha.
that there's only
Okay.
one O-ring there.
Yeah, definitely make sure there's only one. If you've got two, it won't
I
seal
had
properly.
one come out of box with 2 on it, and I didn't know it.
And
I
then
built it.
I guess since we have it here, we might as well point it out. You can see this tool right here. This is a tool they give you to help tighten these fittings. Now we have some more different tools that we like to use. This is kind of like that Allen wrench that's included with your IKEA furniture. That it's like it'll get the job done, but if you've got a bigger one, it's better to use that. So, so yeah, we've got our fittings prepped on our tubes. We'll go ahead and put the tubes on. So. Yeah, Hayden, if you kind of just want to walk us through what you're doing when you're doing this, we'll try to get this at a good angle here, Jason. If you want to, can we? Will this work for you, Hayden? If we've got it, kind of like, oh, perfect. That
should be no problem. Okay, so I'm gonna start with my
rotate it just a little bit so we can get those radiator
smallest tube first.
There we go. Nice. Okay, so that's our first.
This tube's gonna go from the top radiator to our CPU. And
okay.
So what I wanted to talk about, right? If I were to make a tube go from out here, out on the pump, and go back into the pump, it's just going to cycle through. Obviously, you need to have a tube. Everything needs to have a flow to it. So as long as you have a tube coming from your top radiator to your pump, from the pump to the CPU, to the CPU, to the radiator, in that motion, everything will work.
So the pump's got, so the radiator's got an in and an out.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if we can go back to that other shot real quick,
they have
Jason,
it printed on there.
Just to point out, on the pump it's printed inlet and outlet. Now it's very easy to see this first silver fitting right here, right above my finger.
Yeah.
There is another one behind that. So there's
oh, and that's your out.
Yeah, there's 2 on the radiator, 2 on the CPU, and 2 on the reservoir.
I'm so glad we're doing this. I like these kind of builds have always fascinated me. Always fascinated.
These are the coolest ones. This is I mean, there's nothing that like these just look the best. So cool.
No, they're a lot of fun to do. So the back outlet is going to be the one that this is going to go on to. So you just put the 2
so that they're not crossing paths.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So I'm going to just try to get this to tighten onto there.
So you always want to use that rear one so that you're not having to really cross your pipes.
Also, if you want to get that rear one in there first, because if I were not to do that, if I had the first one in or the front one in, getting that back one in would be impossible because you have a tube in your face. So.
Gotcha.
This just lines up right there.
And how tight are you tightening those down?
As tight as I can get.
As tight as you can get with your hands,
yes.
right? Yep.
You could go and use pliers, but
please don't use a pipe wrench.
I just don't like risking scratching the paint.
Absolutely,
it looks horrible
agree.
if you were to scratch.
And getting these things hand tight is more than enough to seal them. Now we obviously, this thing goes through the same testing procedures as our other, and it gets a little bit more of a stringent testing. So we will check for leaks. Sometimes they leak, and that's how we know we need to tighten down the fitting a little bit more.
Sometimes.
So,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying. So you mentioned testing. We usually always go over this about the testing real fast. So let's cover that real quick. What kind of testing do the PCs go through, and then what is different about testing an open loop system versus a closed loop system?
Yeah. So this machine, this is obviously one of our highest end here, open loop. Great showcase system. This machine, everything to just a standard machine, all goes through the same testing procedures. So once the system's built and turns on, we take it to our testing and integration department. And the first thing we do there is get into the BIOS. We'll make sure our RAM speed's set correctly, all of our storage devices are showing up. Sometimes there's some settings in there that need tweaked a little bit. Once the BIOS is set, then we load the operating system, any games the customer wants, any extra programs, stuff like that they've ordered, or anything in that realm. And then after that, we put the system through a 12-hour stress test. So we've got a few different benchmarking softwares that we use. Typically, it's going to be 3D Mark, but we also have FurMark, Prime 95, a couple others that we may use depending on the system specs and what we think it needs. But whatever it is, we do that for 12 hours. And what that allows us to do is I always use RAM as the example, but it could be any component. So we'll just say maybe the stick of memory, one of these sticks of memory in the system is working and will work when we turn the system on, but in a gaming environment, it will cause it to fail. This stress test and burn-in that we put it through will catch that failure and allow us to repair it here, replace it, and do another stress test with a new component to make sure you get a stable system. So as far as open loop goes, extra measurements, we are obviously making sure it's running overnight, that we're getting all the air out of the system. You'll see us get a lot of the air out of the system today after we get the liquid in, but it still does need to run for a while to get the air out. Typically, if you're looking at this shot here, the CPU block, you'll see some air get trapped in there because obviously everywhere has air in it right now, and we need to get that air out for everything to function properly. So that's a lot of the extra testing that goes in for an open loop.
Now, we had mentioned that I had wondered if it was a special type of coolant or if it's just closer to water. What is this liquid that we're going to be putting in there today?
Yeah, so it's cryofill. It's a coolant, if you will. It's a concentrate, basically.
It's a coolant concentrate.
Yeah, so you take it's like a little bottle, and then you pour it into this fill bottle, and then this gets distilled water added to it. And so I already got these prepped, so just to make it easier for stream.
Yeah, it's really easy to mix. You put your concentrate in here, kind of how much you think you need to use. It'll just distilled water, mix it up, and these are really easy to use. I'm trying not to squeeze them down to make a mess, but
yeah. So I put it in the fill bottle, fill it all up, mix it up, and then whatever I don't use just gets put back in the little bottle that the customer purchased, and it gets sent with them.
Oh, cool.
So they can have
Okay.
extra.
Awesome.
Sometimes, even after our stress test, after this thing's been running for maybe a couple years, there still might be tiny little pockets of air that just didn't get out due to whatever reason. So sometimes there can be a little bit drop of like fluid level, and that will allow the customer to just open up the reservoir and put it in. And we'll obviously walk you through that over the phone if you're not comfortable getting in there. If you, and that's not to say that every system needs that. It's just if we will.
It's one of those situations.
I would love an open loop, but I don't trust me to not screw it up. Then I've just ruined an entirely perfectly good computer. All right, so we've got our next set of pipes. We've obviously done from the CPU block up into the radiator. So we're going to be sending that hot liquid up there to cool down. So now we've got to come up with bring it down to the reservoir. Or is the first thing we're going to be doing is going from the reservoir into the intake of the CPU block?
Well, it doesn't matter for stream's sake.
Okay.
The one from here that frames off this GPU, I like it a lot, so we're going to do it last. But
cool.
So we're going to go from this pump to the other
Okay.
port on the CPU. So like I said, it's going to be coming through, out, and then back up, and it's going to do that whole cycle.
Got it.
Now, I want to make sure that I got the right side because they both are the same shape, but one of them is a little taller.
Oh, gotcha. And that way you're not risking touching the RAM.
Yes.
Well, it just slides over.
Yeah.
It's like playing with Legos, but PCs.
Yeah.
I love this.
It's adult Legos.
Yeah.
It is, for reals. In fact, that was wrong. Okay.
So you just want to make sure that everything is seated properly.
Yeah, because you don't want it to be off center.
Nope. I like to make sure
You got it lined up. Now you tighten it down.
Straight, parallel. If I wanted to. So instead of having my tube like this, I could have had it, just going whatever. But it looks aesthetically pleasing if everything is going and flowing properly.
Yeah, all the lines are lined up and everything.
Winterfell does bring a very good point up, and that is that the RAM is not coming out unless you drain that loop, and that is absolutely correct. I don't foresee how you could possibly take that out unless there's more room than we can see.
Yeah, there might be.
I mean, you might be able to finagle it,
enough
but
Oh,
gap
no, you have-
to get your RAM out
Here you go.
between that tube, but you know,
have
it's
plenty of room.
definitely,
It's not. It might
Never
look
mind.
like you're touching. It's not.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, because Winterfell mentioned that, I looked and thought, you know what, that does look awfully close. But no, okay, there's more room than I thought there was. Okay, now we've got the big one.
Yeah.
Why is the big one your favorite?
Because it frames off the vertical GPU perfectly.
Now, did you already size this all out, or do you just happen to know this for,
No,
you know, from having done this before?
I spent like a half day prepping everything and making sure everything would properly work for stream because I don't want to keep you guys here for like 6 hours.
Yeah, now if everybody wants to see
Now,
like the tube bending, we will definitely.
I am down
show
to
that.
show the process.
We're just kind of. It's obviously a time thing. So like Hayden said earlier in the stream, he gets one of these done in a day, and that's honestly really fast. So, you know, we're kind of figuring that out. Maybe we do like a 2-part stream. We'll figure something out where we can show that the actual tube bending. But
Or we'll just do it. We'll do a pre-record.
yeah. Oh yeah. We could definitely do that too.
Now, here's a question for you: is that this reservoir return or tube into the pump, is that touching the GPU?
Yes, it is resting very
Gently.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that the tube that's bringing in the hot, or is that tube that's bringing in the already cooled?
It is.
Is the
Yeah, it is. Like I said, cycling through, so that temperature is going to be pretty much the same throughout the entire.
Oh, okay.
Throughout the entire system.
sweet?
Those final checks.
Yep, just want to make sure everything's tightened down. Make sure everything is properly seated. Alrighty.
And now we're gonna fill it up.
Yeah.
So, starting out to fill this, where we're going to be filling it from is the top of that reservoir. Now, this is where we'll use the plastic wrench, right? This thing from...
I already got
You
it out.
get it out? You already got it out?
And,
Yeah,
yes.
it's got the little thing. So, there is a cap on top of this. Go ahead and show that real quick, Hayden. So, this is the little cover that goes on top of that radiator.
And it just goes right on top
on there.
right
So
there.
you'll see that hole a little bit more once that straw gets in there.
I'm going to get our
Do you need
tie-dyed.
now? Yeah, I was like, do you need to take protective measures to make sure that nothing potentially splashes on any of the electronics?
Yes. As you guys can see, that this is tie-dyed because of
all the different
past projects.
Yeah.
They started out white, people, and now they're just all over the place.
They were white, and now, you know.
So we will put tubes kind of under where all the fittings are, because if you're going to get a leak, that's 99% of the time where you're going to get a leak at. Now, if let's say this thing, we turn this on, pump moves, and it's spraying fluid everywhere.
We're going to instantly turn it off.
We will turn it off, but that should not damage the components. This fluid, once we get it off, we can clean it, and it should be fine.
This liquid does take a very, 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 very long time to dry. So you have plenty of time to get in there, fix what you need to do, and get back to it.
I like our colorful rags.
These are great. Winterfell asked about pressure tests. That's a good question. I'm not sure. Paul, do you pressure test? What's the pressure at, or is there pressure adjustments for this, or is it just all kind of done on its own?
Yeah, so there really isn't a pressure test or any adjustment for that. You know, typically in like a hydraulic system, depending on what you're doing, you have like pressure regulators that do that. That's usually for like moving components. This fluid is simply flowing through the system. It's not, you know, opening any doors or opening anything like that. So we just need the fluid to just keep rotating through the cycle, pulling the heat away from the CPU and running it through the radiator to cool it.
Another thing, like testing these components, you don't want to, like, I don't want to turn it on right now. I got all my components are plugged in. So if I were to turn it on right now, you'll hear like besides the fan spinning, you'll hear like a motor almost.
Yeah. You don't want to run that dry.
You don't want to run that dry.
So you'll see even sometimes when we get these going, like we'll have this radiator full, and then once this is turned on, you'll see that radiator fluid level really start to drop, and that's because it's obviously got to fill up the radiator. Our radiator is completely empty up here up top, and obviously our tubes are empty too.
So what we're going to do...
We might even like shut it off real quick once it pumps through, just so our pump doesn't run dry, add more, and then turn it back on.
What I like to do is fill up the entire pump, turn it on, let it do its cycle, turn it back off, fill it up, keep doing that until the entire thing is filled. Mostly, it's just to get that radiator filled up, and then we can go from there.
Nice. Nice. Okay, so what's next in the step? Now we've got it all...
Fill it up.
All right, go ahead.
All right. This is the careful process. Okay, so when you're doing this, walk me through the process. You want to get that in before you do any type of squeezing, and then I'm assuming you want to be super gentle about this?
Yeah. So, I mean...
You can rotate the bottle a little bit just so we can see some of that. There you go. Perfect. Perfect. Now you can see this fluid coming in there.
Nice.
You can see it filling up there.
Yep, you can see that fluid level rising.
Yeah, it's starting to go through the tube.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, you can see some in the tube there. And that's just all gravity fed right now. Obviously, our pump isn't on right now.
And right about there, I'll stop.
Okay.
And we'll plug it in, turn it on, let it do it'll suck it all up, and then...
So this is sort of a preview, people.
Just a little preview.
A little bit of a sneak peek.
All right, so
and this
I'm
is
hit
where
this
we'll
power
be able to
switch, Hayden, so it's going to have power. And
this is where we're going to be able to see if anything is leaking.
Okay, now, hold on, before we turn it on. So when you hit the power button, what is going to happen inside that pump and within this open loop system?
This pump is going to completely drain, sucking all the liquid through here, up, down, and just doing that whole cycle like I was talking about.
I'm going to move this rag a little bit, just so you should be able to watch fluid come through these lines.
I'll move this. See, that's not in the shot.
You're good.
And so once you get those pipes, all the pipes filled in the reservoir, obviously you've got to get the radiator filled as well. Obviously, we're going to be lowering it down, and then we'll turn it back off and add more liquid.
Yep. So what we should see when this turns on is obviously you'll see fluid coming through the tubes, and then we should see this fluid level on this radiator drop. And then we're obviously going to want to turn it off before the radiator or before the reservoir, gets all the way empty. So when you're ready, Hayden.
Gotcha.
Here we go.
Okay.
Holy Nikes! This looks amazing.
And you can
what do you mean?
Go down, and then right there, turn it off. You can see that just do its cycle. That
was a really good
cow,
preview.
that looked amazing!
Yeah, it looks really good.
Before
what do you mean?
Before we fill it up more,
that looks incredible.
I'm gonna just fill around the fittings. If anything's wet, there was like a little hairline leak or a crack or something, because that has happened before where I had a beautiful system, and the next day I come in, I go to testing, I look at it, and there was a splatter,
like a small drip,
and I'm like, what happened? And then it basically those tubes can get hot and they can have like a little crack. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's just sometimes it happens. But we are good to go.
All right, so we're filling it up again. So same concept here. See the fluid level rise.
All the way up to that top again. Carefully remove it.
Yep, you don't want to drip it anywhere.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Those rags, you can see the rags under the reservoir and out the side.
Now that we know, it's not leaking, we can remove them.
All right, round two.
Okay, let's do it again. There's some air in there, obviously. Bring it back up.
All right. So now,
a good 3 fills is probably the best way to do it, right?
It really depends, but yeah.
So something you can tell
this is sexy.
Where we're at, if we go, you can see that the tubes, there's not much air in those tubes at all. They look pretty, pretty full of fluid, and that CPU block is something else. So this next time we turn it on, take a look, if you're watching, take a look at this area right here. You'll be able to see fluid flow. There should be some air bubbles that come out, and that's for our CPU cooler. So that's just something else to look at too on this one.
Okay.
This liquid is one of the best liquids you can get if you want to do like an all RGB, because it just
Yeah,
like Paul
it
said,
shines.
take a look at that CPU block, but take a look at the pump as well. This whole cylinder right here has a nice glow, so it makes that liquid look the color that it is. Like so.
Wow, that is so wicked.
You can hear it bubbling and everything. That's awesome. And yeah, so I just saw, like, you can see a couple air bubbles there coming through the lines. That's exactly what we want to see. We want
It's a good thing.
Air out of this.
Yeah.
And now you can see we've had this thing on for longer than we had on those past 2 startups. So we know that we're getting a lot of air out of the system. Our radiator's full. Our tubes are full. So yeah, Hayden's going to top it off a little bit. And yeah, then we'll kind of rotate everything around.
I'm going to turn it off real fast, just so I can get this cap on. I don't want to chop my finger off with the fan.
Yeah, good idea. It's
Right?
super alarming when you touch those fans.
Yeah. All right, you ready? Paul?
Yeah. So, you got that
Just smile.
You got that cap on tight. Okay.
Yes, we all want it. Let's be fair.
Okay. So, do you want me to? Are we gonna rotate it a little bit?
Yeah.
Do all that, so I can.
Necro, I would love a system like this, but I'll be honest, if I try and change my build,
yeah, let's do it. Maybe
somebody will slap me.
So,
Straight on shot.
we're gonna do it from the straight on part here, and you'll kind of see us rotating it a little bit. So, yeah. All right, here we go. So, everything should be running really smooth now. This thing is pretty much all the way full. Wow. So we'll kind of rotate everything a little bit like this. We're looking for air bubbles to come
and because the cap's on, we don't really have to worry about it.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So we got that cap on. Now, obviously, our tubes are going in to this side of the case. So I'm trying to get the air from the radiator into those tubes so that it'll pump it out.
Oh, and that.
Now, this thing's already done a really good job of getting the air out. I'm honestly impressed.
They usually have it's usually like the distro plates that need it.
Yeah, that's right, it is. So that CPU block, sometimes you'll see some bubbles wrapped around
so impressed.
there. But I don't really see any. I think this one's pretty good. Now, obviously, we'll get the rest of the air out for whatever's in there in testing. But, yeah, we're just kind of getting it at all sorts of angles here.
This is wild. I love it.
Really, I think this one's probably ready to go.
You make it look easy, and now I'm thinking maybe I should have asked for a liquid. Maybe I should have asked for an open loop on my build.
I'll do it.
That's good. Well, I'm just going to look at one more thing. I'm going to get kind of a close-up. Man, now that fluid is looking great in that CPU block.
Can we get a close-up shot, actually?
We might be able to.
That liquid
Can you lay it on its back and put it? Can you lay it on its back and put it on the top down?
Yeah, we are. We got our other camera over here that we're gonna.
That liquid
to go to.
Or the tubes and the liquid in there make it, the RGB.
Oh, happy because I've always
the color.
Yeah. Honestly, it's my allergies, but also I'm fascinated because I've always wanted to see how this is done. This is the first time I've actually had it explained in a way that's comprehensively understandable. Look at that. It's gorgeous.
That looks so
and as you mentioned, all the lighting is popping off of that white tubing and everything else. So that is now what we have left is the doors.
Yep, this is it. So yeah, this thing is ready to have our panels on.
Keep it on.
Yeah.
Just put these doors on.
Yeah.
There's no leaks. Everything is good.
Yeah, honestly, the air got out of the system a lot better than I expected it to.
That is.
Usually we have to, work it a little bit more.
What I like to do is not put on that top piece for the plug, and as I'm filling it up, it sucks all that air and kind of, dissipates it out.
That makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah, Cable Guy, definitely agree. We are all learning a lot here. This is now my favorite episode ever.
This was
so
fun.
cool.
I'm so glad we
That's
finally
so
got to
cool.
actually get an open loop on the show.
Yeah.
So it's really fun to be able to. I'm really glad you guys liked it.
It did take us a little longer than our usual show, but I'm so glad everybody stuck around. This is awesome.
No, this is great. So
Great
let
stuff
us
here,
know
people.
what you guys want to see too.
Oh,
We will.
that was on backwards.
Maybe,
This is the front.
I got you.
I've done that too many times.
Yes, that does matter.
We
That
don't need
does.
side panels on this thing, anyways. It's pretty enough.
Yeah. Right.
All right.
absolutely incredible. And
Beautiful.
we'll get that into position, and we'll go back over. Are we good? I like it. Let's take a look. Oh,
here we
go ahead.
Jason's
There we go.
And okay.
All right, let's one more time go through everything that went into this system for Ryan in Pennsylvania. This Phanteks case has an Intel Core i7-13700KF processor that is open loop liquid cooled. It's put into an ASUS Prime Z790A Wi-Fi ATX board with both Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.3. 216 gigs of Kingston DDR5 5600 sticks of RAM equals a total of 32 gigs in the system. Plus, as you can see on that front mount, it's an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4090 24 gig graphics card. The operating system will be housed on a 1 terabyte Kingston NV2 M.2 NVMe SSD, and of course, it's got 7 GameDS AEOLUS M2 RGB fans, plus it's all powered by a 1000-watt Silverstone Strider power supply unit. Absolutely incredible. Then, of course, when it comes to the extras, it's just those white fittings, which is great. What an incredible system, and our first time ever doing one here, and good grief, that looks awesome. Absolutely awesome. I dig it.
That's why we call these showcase systems. They just look so good.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I see what you meant there. So we've got 2 parts to our show today. This is going to be part 1. We're going to take a break. When we come back, it is going to be an afternoon spent with Hayden as he continues to build things at extraordinary speeds, and he is basically the Flash of the office. So, with that being said, you can tune into this show every Tuesday and Thursday starting at 11 a.m. Pacific. That's 2 Eastern right here at twitch.tv/CLX Gaming TV. You can find out more about our giveaways and the codes, which you can find out for the giveaways, which you can also get on our social media. That's YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter at CLX Gaming. Check out our Discord as well, discord.gg/CLX Gaming. You can also grab codes off of my stream, which will be happening later on today. And with that said, thanks so much for watching, and don't go away. During the break, we're going to be showing you our combo video for the Best of DreamHack Day 2 and Day 3, and this is just some of the content that we collected. On behalf of Kyle and Jason in production, Paul and Hayden, I'm DJ BluePDX. Thanks for watching, and don't go away. We've got more coming up right after this.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.